Hi guys, this little lens right here has fantastic autofocus, it has excellent sharpness, and wonderful image quality. They are clearly taking aim directly at Viltrox's very popular Air series, but this one is only $110. We need to talk about it. Now, as many of you who watch the channel know, I am a big fan of the Viltrox Air series lenses. They are small, lightweight, very affordable, and have excellent image quality, especially when you compare it to the price. But now we have a new competitor. Look at this here in Camera 2. These are very similar looking lenses. Let me take off the lens caps so you can see this is the Viltrox here, and this one is from Yongnuo. Now this is the Viltrox 35. Right now this is the Yongnuo 50mm, but all of the Viltrox Air series are about this size, and as you can see, they are very comparable in size and build quality, except you may notice the Yongnuo has an autofocus to manual focus switch. That is a great addition in my opinion. I love to have a switch for autofocus to manual focus. I also love an aperture ring, but I understand very small compact lenses, very affordable. An aperture ring is probably too much to ask, especially one that is clicky or declicky. I digress. Now, Yongnuo is calling this a new series of lenses. This is the first one in the Lite series, L-I-T-E. So once again, clearly competing with the Viltrox Air series. If you can't tell from looking at it, Lite versus Air, and similar in price, but this one is even cheaper. And of course, I should mention, like almost all of the lenses that I review on the channel, this was sent to me at no cost to myself for the purpose of this review, so let that bias factor in where it may. But this is a 50mm focal range, f1.8, so it lets in lots of light. On an APS-C camera, because this is an APS-C lens, you get about a 75mm field of view, so this thing can be great for portraits, but I also like to use it just for everyday shooting. I like the way this focal length looks. I'm able to step back a little bit from my subject, still get lots of subject separation, and sometimes I just want a tighter focal length. Take around a little APS-C camera, get all the way out to 75mm full frame equivalent, and I really like the shots that come out of this. So I like to use this for landscapes, for cityscapes, for street photography, as well as portraiture. Let's talk about the build quality of this lens. It is made of a hard plastic. It is small and lightweight, 138 grams. You barely feel it when it is on your camera. It has a smooth turning focus ring, and as I mentioned, an autofocus to manual focus switch, a little tiny switch that they fit right there on this little tiny lens. I do appreciate that. It has a 58mm filter thread, and it has a USB-C port on the side for updating your lens. There is a small weather sealing gasket on the base of the lens to help you when you have this lens out in the elements. Comes with a pretty deep petal lens hood, which is a high quality lens hood. A lot of times the cheaper third-party lenses, they will have flimsy lens hoods around this price, but not so with this one. Nice and solid. Looking at performance, as I mentioned, the autofocus is fantastic. It is as good as any third-party lens on my Sony camera. Snappy, no hesitation, goes from subject to subject. AFC, AFS, tracking, doesn't matter. It does a great job, and it does it very, very quietly. I don't hear any motor noise at all in this stepping motor when I am taking photos. Even if your ear is up to the lens, you will barely hear anything. With focus breathing, we do see a moderate amount of focus breathing, so if you are using a lens like this for video and you are doing a lot of long focus pulls, you will have to deal with some of that focus breathing. Or if you plan to stack your images in post, do focus stacking, then you will have to work around a little bit of focus breathing. It is something I would expect at a 50mm focal length for APS-C. Sharpness, I am happy to say this is a very sharp lens. Even down at f1.8, the center is exceptionally sharp. Even the corners are pretty sharp at f1.8, and that definitely surprised me because I can use this now more for architecture, for landscapes, even at lower f-stops, and I will still have pretty sharp corners. If you stop it all the way down to, say, f5.6 or f8, the corners will get a little sharper, but the center is so sharp at f1.8 that it's just as sharp there as it is at f8, and that is pretty remarkable. Like I said, the corners will sharpen up a little bit, and you will also get less vignetting. There is some vignetting with this lens down at f1.8. It does go away at about f2.8. There is a tiny bit of pincushion distortion, which a lot of people actually prefer if they're using this as a portrait lens. Often the model thinks they look a little better with a tiny bit of pincushion distortion, but you can also correct that quite easily. I really don't see the need to correct this pincushion distortion. It is definitely not noticeable in my day-to-day photos, so I wouldn't worry about it, but you can correct it if you want it optically perfect. You will see some lateral and longitudinal chromatic aberration on this lens, and I did expect to see that at a 50mm focal length APS-C and at this price. I knew that that would be coming, and it is there. Now, when you are down at f1.8, you will see some lateral chromatic aberration, which is not too hard to correct in post. By the time you're at f4, that goes away. Now, the longitudinal chromatic aberration, that is the color fringing in the foreground and the background that is out of focus. That is harder to correct in post, and you do see that on this lens, and it's there fairly strongly at f1.8, and it doesn't really go away until about f5.6. So if you're taking landscapes or cityscapes in challenging environments, stopping it to f5.6 is going to get rid of that longitudinal chromatic aberration. For me, that's fine, because when I do landscapes or cityscapes, I'm either at f5.6 or f8, even f11 sometimes, so that won't bother me too much. But if you are in a challenging environment and you are down at the lower f-stops, you will see some of that bokeh. You get some nice 14-point sun stars on this lens. They're not the greatest sun stars I've ever seen, but they are definitely quite pleasing, at least to my eye. Now, when it comes to flaring and ghosting, this is a lower price lens, and that is an area that all lower price lenses tend to struggle with, is the flaring and the ghosting, because the coatings are not crazy expensive coatings, because it is a crazy cheap lens. But this one actually does pretty well. If you are in any kind of regular environment, I don't find any kind of flaring or ghosting creeping in to my images. If you're in a challenging situation, midday sun, the sun is in your lens, then you are going to get some flares and some ghosting. So keep the lens hood on to mitigate some of that. And also be aware that you can get some bigger flares depending on your aperture and the angle of the bright light. Now, one of the most crucial aspects of a lens that can go down to f1.8, especially one where you might want to take some portraits, is the quality of the bokeh. And the quality of the bokeh on this lens is excellent, much better than I thought it would be. It is very smooth back there, excellent fall off from things that are in focus to out of focus. It's not messy, even with a busy background. Very happy to see the bokeh so good on this lens. And the bokeh balls, oh my God, such nice, clean, round balls on this lens, and you can get some fairly prominent bokeh balls, some bigger balls on this guy right here because of the focal length, and they come out very nice. No onion ringing, no haloing, no weird artifacts inside your nice clean bokeh balls. So overall, I have to say this is an excellent value and a joy to use. The autofocus is so snappy even in very low light conditions. I had a great time shooting with this lens, and the price being $110, that is just bonkers to me. I think it's a no-brainer if you're looking for something around the 50mm focal length for APS-C. Now, as I say, the Viltrox Air series does exist, and optically these lenses are a bit more perfect than this Yongnuo lens, but this one is about $110, and these Viltrox Air series lenses, some of them are starting to creep up towards around $200 now with the new pricing that is in effect. So $110 to get a really nice shallow depth of field 50mm autofocus lens that works great, lightweight, easy to carry around. I can definitely recommend this lens. I just punched my A6700. Sorry, camera, but I can definitely recommend this lens. I think it is great. But that is just my opinion. Let me know down below what you think. Does this lens float your boat? Are you excited that Yongnuo is introducing an even cheaper series of lenses? Let me know. We'll have a nice little discussion about it. Thanks for watching this. We'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.